Hi everyone, my name is Mark Moikins from Big Mountain Studio. If you're interested in iOS development, then subscribe and click that bell icon, and you're going to get notified when I come out with new videos that'll teach you new things. So today we're going to be customizing our navigation bar so it matches up this mockup that we have. But first, let's look at something. So in our application on the first screen, we have a nav bar, but there's nothing on it. So I asked my patrons, hey, do you guys want a nav bar on this first screen or no nav bar? And so here's the poll, and let's see what the results are. You see A has no nav bar, B has a nav bar. And we go down and we see it looks like they want a nav bar. So that's option B here. So we're going to keep the nav bar and we're going to customize it. And we'll put this word trips inside of it. Okay, so these are the mockups that we're going to be creating. And as you can see, we're using our accent color here. And we're also using that font in the header. So we're going to give that nav bar a custom font. And let's review the parts that we're going to be touching for the nav bar. Now we had the tint color that the nav bar will be using, and that's for the back button there. And that background color for the nav bar itself is called the bar tint, which is kind of weird, having that word tint in there, because usually we associate that with things that you can interact with, the color that you can interact with. But this is called the bar tint, which is like the background color. And then we're going to be customizing the title font and the title color of the nav bar. Okay, so let's head into our project and get to work customizing this nav bar. Okay, we are on the first page and we have a nav bar up here. There's no title in it, so we're going to have to add that. Now, normally when we want to give a title to a view controller, what we do is we use this title property right here. So I say trips, and this is used to supply the title for our nav bar. But check this out. If I run the application, let's take a look and see what happens. Where's the trips text for my nav bar? It's not there. So there's a different way. On the first one, what you have to do is you have to click on it. Your first view controller that's attached to your navigation controller here has a navigation item. And that's where you want to supply the title for the first view controller. So this is trips. And we can go back here into the title and remove that. We don't really need it. And if you remember on the activities view controller, what we do is we select a trip here and we use that title of the trip for the title of our view controller. So if I come into the activities view controller here, where is it? Yeah, after we get the model, the trip, I set the title right here. So this is used for our nav bar. That's why I set the title. And I might do that a little bit differently because watch what happens when I run this. So I'm going to click on trip to Bali. But you notice how it popped up later? Like it's kind of delayed, right? I want it to be more instantaneous than that. So how can we do that? Well, what I'm going to do is instead of supplying it here, I want to pass it in or set it as a property. And I set trip ID as a property. Like if we look at the view controller where we actually navigate, where is it? I think it's down here at the bottom. Yeah, I set the trip ID. So at this point, I also have the trip name. So why don't I create a property and set that? I think it's just called trip title. I want to use the same name. So let's see. Let's go to trip title. Yeah, okay. Yeah, trip title is fine. I use trip ID here, and this is trip.id, trip title, trip.title. I like consistency. Okay, this doesn't exist, so we need to go into that view controller. I'm going to hold down Option, right-click. So I have trip title here. I'm going to copy that. And I'll just add it right here. Paste it in. And by default, I think I'll just have an empty string. Okay, that's fine. And then here, well, let's take that out. And then we'll just set it like the first thing we do. We don't need the self. All right, and let's see if that helps. That's funny. Still shows the error. Okay, there, finally went away. Okay, it's much faster, right? We don't have to pause or wait, and the name is just right there. Okay, perfect. All right, so let's get back to customizing our storyboard here, or customizing the nav bar. Now, when it comes to customizing and supplying the appearance information, what I'm going to do is click on this nav bar over here on the nav controller, and we can go into the properties. So I'm going to show you two ways on how to do this. I'm going to show you how to set the properties using the attributes inspector. And then I'm going to show you how to do it in code because I actually want to do it in code because I have my theme information that I'm going to be using to supply the font, the size, the colors. It's all going to be coming from my theme. Now, I can supply colors to a certain extent because I'm using named colors. And if I want to change those colors, I just go into my colors and I can change them here and still use the same names. But I can't do that with the font information, not through Attributes Inspector. So let's set the properties through our Attributes Inspector first. Now, do you remember what the background color was? It was bar tint, right? It's kind of like a weird name. So if I come here, I see my named colors, and I'm going to set it to our accent color. And then we want to set the font to our own custom font, which is this one right here, Fugaz 1. So I still have the navigation bar selected. We go into title font here. Now this is a funny one because it says custom, but it doesn't allow me to select a font yet. So I have to click on system and then go back to custom. And then I can select our custom font, which is Fugaz 1 right here. Okay, in size, we'll go with 20. That looks good. Whoa, too high. There. Okay, and as you can see, it's already starting to change here. And then we just want to change the color. So title color, and we'll change that to white. Everything's looking good, so let's run it and take a look, see what's happening here. Okay, now take a look at this nav bar. Does it seem like there's something that could be updated or changed or some problems here? I see a couple of them right away. And one of them is the status bar, where it shows the time and, your connectivity and how much battery life you have left. So the status bar is black right now, and it'd probably be better if it was white. And then another thing too is, if you look at this color, it doesn't really match. It should be like the color of this Russian trip right here, but it's a lighter color. And so I don't know if you guys can notice, but when I scroll up behind it, you can actually see the colors change a little bit because it's slightly translucent. So there's a little trick to this. So what's happening right now is it's translucent. The white background is coming up through the nav bar. So we're going to change that. Let's select the nav bar here on the controller. And see where it says right here, it says translucent. Well, we're just going to uncheck that. And you can see immediately how it darkened. So now that's the true color of this accent color that we have here. So that's one way we're going to handle it. Now, the other one was the status bar. It's black right now. We want to change it to white. So I'm going to come here, and this is kind of like one of the tricks that you can do is you can just change it to black. And when you change it to black, it changes the status bar to white. So that should handle it. And there we go. That looks a lot better. So we go to Trip to Bali, and as you can see, we didn't have to customize this nav bar for every single scene that we have in our app. We just had to change it in one place, and it takes effect and it spreads throughout your other view controllers. Now the tint looks good, and why is that? We didn't actually set that tint. Not right now we didn't, but in a previous video we did. And the way I did that was, if you come to the storyboard for the activities, I actually set it right on the storyboard itself, and it's right down here. So this color doesn't look right, and this is a bug inside of Xcode. But if you click here, you can see that tint is this orange color. So that is set correctly. And since this global tint is set, it means every control is going to use this tint color. So this is fine. I could leave this like this because, again, if I change that tint color, it's going to update. Since I'm using a named color here, if I update that tint color in my colors assets, then it'll take effect throughout my whole application. So that's good. Okay, everything is looking great, but like I said, I want to make these changes in code. So now let's do that. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo all the work we just did. But I wanted to show you how you can do this through the storyboard. So let's discard all changes. And now we're back to square one. And let's think about this. How am I going to change all of these properties for all of the nav bars and my nav controller throughout the app? I want to do it in a global place. Now you might be thinking, well, you can just do it when your app starts up in the Trips View controller. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change it in the app delegate. In this function specifically, did finish launching with options. And look at this comment right here. Override point for customization after application launch. And that's exactly what we want to do. We want to customize some of these colors and fonts that we're using. So we're going to use this function right here. And how do I access my nav controller? Because my nav controller is actually on the Trips View controller, right? Well, that's just it. I'm not actually going to access that nav controller that's on the Trips View controller. Instead, what I want to do is I'm just going to say, for all nav controllers using my app, use these colors or use this font or use this font size. And the way I do it is through this thing called appearance. And there's appearance on almost all the controls. It's a function that returns like a protocol or what's called a proxy, like a representation of that class that you can set properties on, and it will use these properties throughout your app. So let me just show you. If I look at UI navigation bar, that's what we're customizing here. You can see there's an appearance function. And it says it returns the appearance proxy for the receiver. Now, the receiver is just the class that it's being called on. So it's going to return the UI navigation bar. And then from here, I can customize properties. I can say like a bar tint color. But you notice there's no autocomplete. Now, here's the funny thing. So I could use bar tint color if I have to spell it correctly. I have to remember how to spell it correctly. So we'll say UI color.black as an example. Now it works. Now I can build it and there won't be any build errors. But it kind of stinks to have to remember how to spell correctly, the property color like bar tint color. So instead, what I found is, let's do this instead. I'm just going to return the appearance proxy and put that into a variable. Let's call it navbar appearance proxy, like that. And again, this is just like a representation of the UI navigation bar, but it contains all of the things that I can customize, all the properties that I can customize on it. Actually, here, take a look at this. If I click on this, I hold down Option and click on it, you can see it's a UI navigation bar. So now I'm going to customize properties off of this variable. And now I have autocomplete. So bar tint color. And then I can set it to anything I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get it from my theme file. That's how we access our colors. And there's accent right there. So again, just so you know, I'm going to hold down Option. I'll right click on that. So it appears over on the right side here. Accent equals UI color. And I'm getting the named color called accent. Okay, good. So we had the background set. Now what I want to do is I want to set the font and the color that I'm going to be using. And it's not so simple using this way. Now, if you remember in the attributes inspector, it had a nice little handy property for the font, had a nice little handy property for the title color, but it's not so simple here. So like if we look at navbar appearance proxy and we try to find the, title font and the title color, there isn't any. Instead, what they give us is actually this property right here, title, text, attributes. So this is, as you can see, the type here, it has a key and it has another value called any. So it kind of gives you like this dictionary, this key value pair that you can use. And you say, for this key, I want this value. For this key, I want this value. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to supply the key for the font and supply a key for the color and supply the appropriate values that we want. So we want the title text attributes. And then we'll say equals, and it's an array. Like if we look at that again, I'm going to hold down Option and then click. It's not giving me where's my documentation? Yeah, let's do this. I'm going to hit Control Space. There we go. You see the brackets, it's an array. So that's what we're going to do. We have to create an array, and then we need to supply keys for the font and a key for the color. So the first one is for the font, right? And here, let's look at this again. So I'm going to put the cursor right on the S there and hit Control Space to bring that up. You notice they begin with NS attributed string dot key. So we'll start with that. Or actually, can I hit dot? Yeah, IntelliSense, it's not bringing it up. So let's just do NS attributed string dot key dot font. There it is, font right there. And this is the second one we're going to use, this foreground color for the font. Okay, and what font do I want to use? Well, we get the font from our theme. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to create a variable first, or else this line will just get really long. I want to create UI font, And we've used this before. You guys have seen this before. We specify the name of the font and the size. And it'll come from our main font name here. And the size, we used 20 before, right? Okay, good. So, and then font, we'll just put the variable name right there. Okay, so we have one. And then what I'll do is I'll just put this on a new line so it doesn't just run on and it's harder to read. Actually, let's do this. I like things that are easy to read. So I'm going to hit enter here. Okay, and then tab. We'll kind of line it up a little bit. And it's attributed string again, key. And what was the other one we wanted? Foreground color, right? Yeah, there we go. Foreground color. Foreground color we used was white. So UI color dot white. There we go. What's it saying? Oh, yeah. So it's saying that, when we create this, well, this string might return a nil because the string doesn't match up to any font that we have, like if it can't find this Fugaz1 regular. But we know it's going to exist because we've used it before. And if it doesn't exist, well, I want to know right away. So when I run the app, I want it to crash right away before I release. So I'm going to make that assumption that, yes, it does exist. So let's run that and we'll see how that looks. Oh, no, what happened? So remember how we had to set that value before? Well, we're going to set that again for the nav bar. So that's fine. But the color, you notice there's still some things. The changes that we made before for the nav bar, we'll have to make those again because maybe I shouldn't have discarded all my changes. But this will be a good review. So do you guys remember how to set that to white, the status bar to white, and how to set the title? And notice it's lighter because it's translucent. This part looks fine. Oh, oh my God. I totally shouldn't have discarded my changes because I also discarded the change that when I click on this, we set that new property on the other page. So that's my mistake. Maybe I should have just gone in and only undid some of these changes. This is what I should have done. I should have taken a look at what I have. I should have gone into commit, and I should have looked at all my changes. And then I should have I'm like, oh, well, I don't want this change. I could have just right-clicked on the changes that I didn't want and discarded those. But instead, I discarded all my changes. And as you can see, I have to redo a bunch of work. Well, I'm not going to do that in this video. I'll just do some of it just so we can get it to the point where it looks right. So let's go back real quick, and I'll make these changes. I'll speed up the video to make these changes. Okay, that should do it. Let's run the application and see how it looks. There we go. That looks a lot better. Okay, except for this popping up. And I'll make those changes on my own after this video. Okay, great, guys. So that's it for this video. And you learned 2 different ways on how you can customize the nav bar. How to do it through the attributes inspector and how to do it in code. And as you can see, doing it in code is a little bit different because we use this appearance function to return a proxy or a representation of the nav bar that we can customize and update. All right, let's keep going and climb that big mountain to be a better developer. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it on social media, and you can also include me. My Twitter handle is down there below. And if you'd like to help out the channel, you can always provide a translation for the title and the description only in your native language so people in your country can find this video. All right, thanks, guys.